Tonight we talk about some exciting adventures in paranormal investigating and some amazing haunted locations, to include Gettysburg, Pennhurst, Haines, Alaska, Wendover Airfield, and more. As lead investigator for 2 seasons on the A&E Ghost Hunters show, Daryl Marston joins me on this episode of Passion for the Paranormal. Okay, so joining me tonight is Daryl Marston. And Daryl is the co-lead investigator of the Ghost Hunters TV show on A&E. He hails from Middleton, Delaware, and Daryl's investigation skills stem from his background as both a firearms instructor and a contractor, where he not only gained valuable knowledge of how to investigate old homes and buildings, but also a pretty good understanding of how to be a strong and disciplined leader. He founded his own paranormal team in 2011 and has led investigations of countless private residents and over 40 notable historic locations. Daryl is known and well respected in the paranormal field for his live interactive investigations on social media and as host of a popular podcast, The American Ghost Hunters Show. Daryl, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been a big fan of the Ghost Hunter show going all the way back to 2000, I would say 2005 timeframe for me, when I kind of started watching the show and Jason and Grant, and that really kind of, I would say that kind of whetted my appetite and interest in the paranormal. And I watched the show for several years, but we're not here to talk about me. So I want to kind of hear your backstory, how this started for you, because it sounds like you got involved with it. It's been a 10-year journey, at least for you, maybe even longer. But take us back, man. Let's hear about how this started for you, how your journey into the paranormal kind of started.
Yeah, well, we're going on 18 years now. I've been doing this, started out as a hobby, and I got into it by, a lot of people are surprised to hear I got into it by complete accident. I actually, back in 2005, in October 2005, kind of got free tickets to go to a paranormal type deal they were doing at a local investigation. I'd never been on an investigation at that point. I didn't even know what a ghost hunter was. I had watched a little bit of Ghost Hunters. I remember my mom watching it and her telling me about it. So I kind of watched a few episodes. I thought it was cool at the time. Didn't think much about it, but I was always into the whole Halloween spirit of things. So I was like, what the hell not? It's like a week before Halloween. My mom didn't have anybody to go with her, so I said, I'll go. And I went on this investigation at this really cool place called Fort Delaware, not far from where I live. And it's basically an island. You have to take a boat over to it. It was a Civil War prison camp, is what it was, for the prisoners of Gettysburg. Most of the prisoners were. So I went there, and it was only maybe 2.5, 3-hour investigation. Went with this old guy. He was the paranormal guru at the time, and he took us on his investigation. And I actually witnessed a half-body apparition. That's the first time I had ever had any kind of paranormal experience that I can remember. Now, don't get me wrong, I did grow up in a haunted house, apparently. I don't remember it because I was like 6 years old when we moved out. I just remember the stories that were told to me by my parents and my grandparents. So I went on this investigation and I witnessed this half-body apparition. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was seeing things. Then I started kind of wrapping my head around it. I wanted to kind of figure out what I saw. So I knew when I left there that night, somehow I was going to, pursue this and figure out and try to recreate it, see if I could see this thing again. So I did many more investigations at Fort Delaware, Gettysburg, all around the local area where I live. I mean, I'm 2 hours from Gettysburg. I live in Delaware. I live probably 15 minutes from Fort Delaware. So I was all over the place. And then at the time, I was dating my wife. We started dating, and she started getting into it. So we started doing a little traveling, investigating. And then fast forward to 2011, I'm still doing it as a hobby, having fun with it, doing it, once or twice, on the weekends or whatever, every month or so. So I wanted to start my own team. So I reached out to some people on Twitter that were talking to me about paranormal. They had just left a team up in Akron, Ohio. And I joined them, and we joined together. We we created a team called Breaking Paranormal, and we traveled the East Coast. We did some stuff for Amazon Prime, eventually some videos and things of that nature. Didn't really go too far with it. But then around 2014 or 15, I wanted to pull back a little bit because I put a lot of money into traveling, hotels, because you're working off your own dime at that point. So I wanted to pull back a little bit. So I got into podcasting and live streaming and things of that nature. And that kind of blew up for me after about a year or two. And that's where Ghost Hunters actually found me when they were rebooting the show. They found me on one of my live streams. And next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls from some producers in LA and getting flown to LA. And then I'm on the show about a month later. So that's where I was. And now I'm a co-owner of Paranormal Warehouse, very large paranormal live streaming service. We do a lot ad content for certain companies as well. And that's the stuff I'm doing right now, and doing my own filming for Epic Haunts.
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you, you've had 2 seasons of the show with Grant. You've already aired 2 seasons on there.
Yeah.
Are you guys, there's been kind of a back and forth, not sure if we're going to do season 3. We are. Where are you at right now? I mean, are you guys
Yeah, no. Well, what happened was the show actually got picked up by Discovery Plus. And then they brought Jason and those guys back, which I know they're great guys. So they just started their new season. I think it was January 1st, if I'm correct on that. So they're doing their own show now, Ghost Hunters again. So it's confusing. It went back and forth from A&E, originally with Sci-Fi, then to A&E, and then over to Discovery Plus. So it bounced back and forth for a while. So who knows where it'll land next?
Okay, so they were doing Ghost Nation,
Right.
and I believe it was Jason, Dave, and Steve. And so Ghost Nation, I feel like I've missed the latest news. I don't have Discovery Plus, so I haven't watched the shows on there. But so Ghost Nation has went away, and they're kind of restoring the original Ghost Hunter show, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, well, it was just it's just Jason, Steve Tango, and Sherry, who used to be on some of the older episodes. She's back. She was doing Ghost Nation with them as well. But great people, guys. I know them all. I've met them all. Good people. So I give them my full support. But they're doing their thing over in Discovery Plus right now.
Yeah,
and our show is actually airing this. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah. So is there any chance? So you've got the team you guys were working with Grant. Is there any chance you guys resurrect some sort of show with Grant and the cast you guys were working with?
Well, in this business, you never know. People say I never will, or it won't happen, and all of a sudden one day you get a phone call. Who knows? I've had several phone calls from several different production companies since kind of walking away from Ghost Hunters. And we'll see, man. I don't know. It nothing to do with Ghost Hunters, that format. It's other paranormal shows, but so who knows, man? We all might end up somewhere else. We all might end up back together. It's hard to say, to be honest with you. It's all up to production.
Now, you did the podcast show, the American Ghost Hunter show. I know you had different team members on that you worked with on the show. Is that still going on? Is the podcast still going on? Or are you really kind of doing different kind of work now?
Yeah, I'm doing completely different work now. I got away from me doing. We've actually talked about bringing a different podcast back. American Ghost Hunter show was very popular, but my partner Alex King, he kind of went his own way. We're still really good friends. He owns a company called Aha Design, where he does. If you've seen a paranormal banner, or even some of them are named paranormal banners on social media, he's probably actually designed it, and that's his company. It's what he does. But we actually, the network I was on toward the end there, which is Paranormal Warehouse, I actually co-owner of it now. and it's a very large network. It's not just a network, it's an actual business. We do business with companies like Ravensburger, Death Wish Coffee, and several other sponsors that actually we do ad content for these companies. So that's kind of the direct that all went in. We kind of rebuilt it about a year and a half ago. It was a lot of live shows, similar to what you're doing right now. We had psychics, we had true crime, paranormal, you name it. And we kind of got away from that because that was the format for about 10, 11 years. And we went to a different format where we're doing a lot more production type stuff. Where there's a lot of editing and stuff involved. So it's it's not live, but we are kind of getting back into the live feed side of things, which everybody will see this summer. There's something big coming up. We've actually partnered with a live feed company and see where that goes here in the future.
Yeah, sounds like you got a lot of stuff going on. Either way, even you're not doing the continuing the Ghost Hunters show with Grant. I want to talk a little bit about Grant. He and Jason were the ones that originally formed the TAPS team and starting the first Ghost Hunters show. Seems like a great guy. I enjoyed watching him on the original Ghost Hunters and on the new show with you guys. What was it like working with Grant?
Oh, Grant's amazing. I became good friends with him and his wife, Rihanna. Rihanna actually came on as a producer on the show. Toward the end of the first season, we did into the second season. Great people, man. Good family people. I can't say enough good things about them. I miss them dearly. I talk to them occasionally. No, they're just good people. I can't say enough. It was great working with Grant. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's a very level-headed, grounded guy. That's all I can, that's the most I can say about him. He's just a good guy all around. Very talented.
Yeah, I watching the show going all the way back to when Ghost Hunters first came out. I really liked, personally, I really liked the approach, how they would, meet with the clients. They would do at the end of the show, and you guys did the same thing on the new Ghost Hunter show, where you would sit down and do a reveal, talk about any evidence or lack of evidence in that case. I always liked that realistic factor to the show because there were times when they would meet with the client at the end of doing an investigation, and it was like, hey, we didn't find any evidence here, and so that when you watch that, you say, well, there's some realism here. Now that some people may say, well, that's not exciting to me because nothing really happened. But I've been involved in this game a while too, and I've investigated at a lot of locations. So I appreciate that because I understand you can go to locations sometimes and there's really nothing happening. And you can go another time and you may have things happen there. But talk about that for you, about the realism actually of doing paranormal investigating and how that's kind of played out for you.
Well, doing it, on your own as an investigator is completely different than doing it on a show where, on your own, you usually only have one night or a day or whatever to investigate a location, and you're in the door and out the door. You only have so much time to compile evidence or whatever you're trying to do there. On a show, I mean, with us, I can't speak for all shows, but with us, our average, shooting of one episode would take a week on average. There was episodes that took 2 weeks because of the size of the location or, what we're putting into it and, how far away we had to go to get to this location. So things of that nature. And it's a lot more running gun and hurry up and wait. So, I mean, you're hurrying up to get there to film. But sometimes you're waiting around for hours to start filming. And then you got where, most investigations start when, most people show up right before it gets dark and then they leave at, 3, 4 in the morning. Well, we're actually on a filming day. We're there, between 8:30 and 9 a.m. and we'd run all the way through into the night. We might have a little bit of a break in between, but we'd have to do other things like, evidence review. We'd have to, actually sit down with clients, eyewitnesses and shoot all that. And sometimes like even with our our walkthrough that you always see in the beginning, there'd be myself and Grant and Brandon, or myself, Grant, and Kristen. Those sometimes, depending on how big the location was, could take almost 8-10 hours to film, because there's a lot of this figuring out where you want to go. There's a lot of safety factors, production has to make sure of, and a lot of kind of cutting in between and trying to figure things out, and filming with eyewitnesses as well. So there's a lot that went into doing a show of that size. I mean, it's a huge production. I mean, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, besides the 6 members you had on the team, we had up to 20 people with us at all times. I'm talking about camera ops, audio, APs, PAs, you name it, producers on certain levels that are always with us. So it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot to keep track of, and you kind of feel like a small part of that, at the end of the day, because there's so many things going on. But then when it comes out, on the show or whatever, we'd actually see the show a couple of weeks before it actually aired. They would, send it to us, and we'd see the rough copy, and then you see what they put together. Sometimes it kept with your narrative, and sometimes it kind of veered away from your narrative. So, sometimes it was a good thing. Sometimes, it was kind of a point where you'd get a little pissed off because they didn't use the evidence that you found. But it is what it is. You learn that game when you're in the business.
Yeah, I was just about to say that's the show business. Yeah, I wanted to. So you kind of stole my thunder a little bit there, Daryl. I was going to ask. So you may be on location, filming for several nights, and that all gets kind of whittled down into an hour-long show, or however long it is. Is that, I kind of understand that. So it could be 8 to 10 hours of filming.
Yeah, a day. Yeah. So I mean, we're there for a good 6 days. That's average. 6 days on a location. Usually, you fly in on a Sunday. By the time you land, it's at night when you get to your hotel. Next morning, you're running and gunning at around 9 a.m. And that first day goes by. It's a lot of interviews and things of that nature. Then you run into Tuesday and Wednesday. That's your actual investigation days, where you're doing investigation, plus you're doing other things. And Thursday's like evidence review, where you take all your evidence that you captured from those 2 or 3 nights, and you put it all together, and everybody figure out what we're going to use and what we're not going to use. And then Friday, you're shooting the reveal. Now that's for an average work week. And then Saturday, you're flying out to the next location. So it's a lot, man. It's a lot of time away from family. On average, about 3 weeks at a time. You're gone, and you're home for a week, maybe 2, if you're lucky, and then back on the road again for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty grueling schedule. And, those of us who watch the show, we don't see all the behind the scenes stuff that goes on. And, all of that you just mentioned, and, talking to witnesses, filming. Talk about so I always like to kind of get the historical part of it too. How much of that was involved in preparing for a show? I think Mustafa did some of your historical stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about that part of it.
Well, you would get what, you got to remember, there was at Pilgrim, that's the production company. They had an actual hotline, like an actual website where people would send their cases. And and once they went through all the cases, you might be a couple hundred cases on there, and they pick which ones sound exciting or sound legit. And then once they grabbed that, then it would be up to the homeowner, or the owner of whoever's running this location, to kind of give them some evidence what's going on there, and set up some of that stuff. And then once they decided, okay, we're going to do this location, say like you were talking about before we came on here, Haines, Alaska, they would send that all to us once they got it all together. Then once we got it, Mustafa would take it and even dig into it more, with the historical side of things, and just to kind of make sure. And that's one thing I can really say about Mustafa, man. He would find things that even the owners or the client wouldn't know about locations. He was very, very diligent and very good at, on investigating and actually digging into that location.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I think that's an important part of going to a location, and obviously the goal is to try and determine if you can capture evidence at a location, and if there's really something going on there. Uh, you worked with the team, the Grants team they put together for the show. Kristen, Mustafa, Brandon, Brian, Rochelle. Whole cast of members. Who was the clown on the show? I thought Mustafa was kind of funny guy. Who do you who was kind of the clown?
Yeah, Mustafa is definitely the most energetic person I think I ever had the pleasure to meet. And I'm still very good friends with Mustafa. We do a lot of events together. He's full of energy, man, and he's a character. He's one of the people. He can start singing a song and he knows every lyric to that damn song. He'll keep going. A song you never even heard of. He knows every lyric to it. And if you're in a car with him for more than a couple hours, you're gonna probably end up wanting to shoot yourself in the head because he doesn't stop. But there's no sleep around Mustafa, man. And Brian's a pretty funny guy too. Brian's funny in another way. Brian was always the guy who's always, getting hurt, tripping, falling down something, breaking something. That's Brian's MO right there. He's funny as hell.
All right, who was the most serious?
Brandon by far. Brandon, yeah, he's the most serious out of all of them. He's very analytical and very scientific when he comes to all of his investigating and everything he puts into it, which is good. You need that person who kind of brings it back, kind of ropes it in and everything. So yeah, I think Brandon's probably the most serious out of everybody, definitely.
Yeah, I wanted to talk. So yeah, you mentioned Gettysburg when we were talking before we started, recording here. I want to talk. I visited Gettysburg long before I ever got involved in the paranormal.
Right.
It was actually while I was on a TDY, temporary duty trip out to DC, while I was active duty military, and uh, early December, very cold. Three or four of us jumped into a car and headed up to Gettysburg.
Right.
And I walked around for about an hour, spent some time in the museum, and then actually outside for about a few of us walked around to the sites. I really wanted to spend a lot more time there, but we had a guy in the car that was feeling sick. And all I can say is I felt this sadness when I was
Mm-hmm.
walking the grounds. But, and I've said this before, it was kind of a strange kind of dichotomy there, if you will, of a feeling I got because it was also kind of a peaceful calm, which may sound kind of weird, but I kind of got both of those feelings while I was there. It's really kind of a somber place, but in some ways, to me, there was also kind of a peaceful calm there. Here I'm visualizing battles and all kinds of stuff going on. But what was kind of your sense when you first visited Gettysburg?
Oh, my first time there was probably 2006 or seven, and I tell you, I was really taken back about with the beauty of the location and the atmosphere. I think I went there. It was January, February, so it was pretty cold out as well. And I stayed 2 days in a B&B, and the locations were just amazing. And you could feel what you're talking about on the battlefield. Definitely, you can feel that calmness, especially when there's not a lot of people around. It's like that at rest almost. Like it's like they're finally at rest and the battle's over. But you also feel like a tension almost as well in some locations where you kind of feel like maybe that it's still going on for these guys. You know, and like I said, I've been there. I go to Gettysburg at least once a year. I just did the Gettysburg Bash back in August. I was there as the last time I was there, and I'll be back this summer for the Bash as well. Yeah, I love the place. And then one thing about Gettysburg is every time I go there, I find something new, something different that I didn't know was there. And I've been going there upwards of 15 years, and every time I go, there's something different that I did not know about. It's been there forever, and it's something new I can explore and look into.
Yeah, interesting. It is a fascinating place. The history there, it's real interesting, and I always think it's a bucket list item for me to get back there and be able to actually do some paranormal investigating. Maybe I know it's not easy. I know they do tours and that sort of thing. You visited many times. Did you guys get a chance to do an episode on the show? I don't remember. I know the original Ghost Hunters had went there a couple of times, the original show. Did you guys get the opportunity to do an episode there?
We actually did an investigation on a house on the show that was about 30 minutes outside of Gettysburg. We actually stayed in Gettysburg. Our hotel was there, but we actually, where we filmed, and I can't remember the name of the town off the top of my head, was a small house that a lady was having problems in. She was trying to move out and had some things happening. So, yeah, no, I mean, that's probably, I mean, if you want to say it's Gettysburg, it is, but we stayed there. We kind of hung out in Gettysburg while we were, filming, but that was about it for the show.
Yeah, in your neck of the woods, you're in the East Coast there. You're in Delaware. You're not too far from Pennsylvania, like you said, pretty close to Gettysburg. Have you traveled into some other locations in Pennsylvania? Pennhurst, that's
Oh yeah,
one that comes to mind.
I actually filmed at Pennhurst. I filmed Epic Haunts there not this December, but the December before 2020. I filmed an episode of Epic Haunts, and I was there before that. I live about an hour from Pennhurst, so it's hop, skip, and jump for me. I love the location, and the people who run the location are amazing. So I love getting out there whenever possible because it's one of those places again where you go there and there's a couple of buildings you can actually get into, but they're trying to open other buildings up, all the time, which is really nice. So yeah, it's just one of those spots, man. It's got so much history about it, and you always find something different when you go there.
Any profound experiences you had that you care to mention while you were
At
there?
first, I think the craziest thing I had happen there, and the two times I've been there was the first time I went was in September. It was still pretty warm out, and it was my wife and myself. Mustafa came and brought his wife Miriam, and we kind of were hanging out in the Mayflower Building. And right before they got there, me and my wife were just kind of, it was middle of the day, we're just kind of walking around the building, trying to, just checking it out, not investigating or anything. And we had a door we were on the third floor, and we had a door behind us slam close. First thing I'm thinking, being an investigator, okay, someone's behind that door, they slammed it. So first thing I do, I run to the door, I open it, and the thing is, it won't open all the way. And I only open about maybe foot and a half, 2 feet, because there's a chain behind it, and there's nobody in there. So, I'm thinking, okay, it could have been some kind of draft, the wind blowing. I don't know. There was no wind blowing outside. So when I came back and filmed there in December of that same year, that's one of the things we kind of investigated was the whole door slamming type thing. And wasn't able to recreate it, but we did really capture some really cool evidence as far as some really crazy EVPs there. Did have some footsteps that were walking. I was by myself. I had a GoPro and a bunch of stuff set up. And they kind of put me in isolation up on the third floor where I had that experience. And I had footsteps that were walking above me. Now, for people who know, on the third floor, there's nothing above it except this little attic space that's probably a couple foot high, for somebody to walk in if you have somebody to crawl around in. And I was actually getting, something was following me down the hallway above me, and you can hear the footsteps on the actual, if you go on our YouTube channel, Paranormal Warehouse, and and watch the Epic Haunts video, you can hear this thing walking above me and follow me back and forth.
Yeah, a couple of years back, I had a guy who ran tours at Pennhurst on with me, and he talked about the Mayflower Building as well, and about some of the most significant experiences he had at Pennhurst seemed to be centered around that building.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about the Mayflower Building and people having things happen there. We had a lot of great experiences there, man. I have no complaints about Pennhurst at all. Great.
What about what about the creep factor for it? Because I can imagine, I've heard, other people say that they got the tunnel system, and by the way, this is a bucket list place for me too. Really want to go there sometime. I'm hoping that by the time I do want to go, it's still going to be a place you perhaps can visit.
Yeah.
Maybe there's you have to pay, that sort of thing. I'm kind of thinking that's probably the case now, the way it's run.
Yeah.
Yeah, so any sort of disembodied voices, any sort of weird things like that going on. I mean, it was a mental hospital. A lot of bad things went on there. I kind of covered that in my special intro to that episode. But yeah, there was a lot of unspeakable things that went on there. But so any kind of evidence related to that?
We didn't get any like evidence that kind of led to what was happening there, but we were getting disembodied footsteps. We heard that several times. Once in the basement, once on the third floor of Mayflower. Yeah, we were getting down in the tunnels. We were getting what we had a bunch of our equipment set up. A bunch of we had like 3 or 4 REM pods, I believe they were. Here, REM pods or EDIs? I can't remember off the top. I think they're REM pods set up in a row, probably about 6 to 7 feet apart from each other. And there's one point where it sounded like someone was walking, and they all went off, simultaneously after each other. Um, yeah, so we had the disembodied footsteps, which you could hear clearly in real time and on our audio. And then we did capture a lot of really class A EVPs there, and some lower class ones like EVPs that were not as not as recognizable when you listen to them. You couldn't really tell what they were saying. And so, and you got to remember, there was a lot of people there who were mentally handicapped, so it could have been them just talking, and that's what you're hearing. You might not have been understand them. Yeah.
Yeah, that what you'd mentioned, the phantom footsteps. I've had that happen investigating a few different locations, uh, and you send a couple of investigators up there to walk around, and there's not a soul in sight. We already
Yeah.
know nobody else is in the building, but of course you want to, double check and make sure that there's nobody had made their way in the building somewhere somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you experience that. That happened to me when I was in a building alone while a couple of the other investigators, we had 2 locations we were investigating, and they left to go over there, and I stayed back at base camp with equipment, and started hearing noise downstairs while I was monitoring audio, which sounded like an audio cord slapping on the ground. And as I went down there, I started hearing footsteps above me. And so it was an unnerving feeling. It
Yeah.
was like something was toying with me. And I don't say this as I'm trying to brag, but there's been very few occasions where I've ever been kind of scared or unsettled in a location. That was one of them.
Yeah.
Because I was alone in the building waiting for the other 2 investigators to come back. So yeah, I've experienced that as well. I want to kind of step back because we were talking about Gettysburg, and then I kind of moved on to Pennhurst. But I wanted to step back to Gettysburg because there's a lot of things people say they've experienced there. Uh, you know, Maybe it's residual cannon fire.
Yeah.
People have heard what sound like gunshots, like musket firings, seen apparitions. What kind of experiences have you had in all the years that you've investigated there?
We've caught some really interesting photos of at the orphanage. Outside the orphanage in the old, like, used to be the backyard of the orphanage where like the kids used to play. We caught a picture of what looked like a little boy kind of peering around a tree at one point. We've captured all kinds of EVPs there. I've seen things, like shadow anomalies and things of that nature and locations. A lot of stuff we capture there is like, most of it is personal experiences. Some of it's captured, some of it's not. But you can always go there, and like I've never been disappointed anytime I've ever investigated anywhere in Gettysburg. It doesn't matter where it is. And the thing is, you're not really allowed to investigate the battlefield. It's against the law, but people do it all the time. You know where to go. So I've run EVP sessions and stuff out there and captured EVPs that are, it sounds like someone's standing right next to you, with some of the things they would say. So yeah, it's a very interesting location. If you want to capture something, if you can't capture something in Gettysburg, then you might want to hang it up because it's all there.
Yeah. Now, Daryl, do you know Mark Nesbitt? He's written the Ghosts of Gettysburg series. He runs tours there. Have you had any dealings with him?
This sounds very familiar, Mark Nesbitt. I think I do know him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the show a while back, and he's captured a lot of. He's had photo evidence set to him. I mean, he's cataloged this stuff, and he actually, of course, he runs tours there. And I was just curious, kind of, if you've interfaced with him or talked with him about, because he certainly has a lot of stories right in the books, the Ghost of Gettysburg stories, and people just share an abundance of information with him.
Books. I probably have some of his books right back here. If he's the one who writes all his books about Gettysburg, yeah, I'm always buying those every time I'm there. I come across them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating location. I'm gonna get back to the show. You already mentioned Haines, Alaska. You guys had that episode where you filmed in Alaska, and seemed to be some interesting stuff going on in the hotel. Talk about that experience and filming there, and kind of how that went.
Well, that was an adventure. I mean, that was about 12 hours of flying. Then you jump on a boat, or I should say a ship, because it's actually a ship, but and going across to Haines, Alaska. It took you about 3.5, 4 hours to get there by water, and then you come to this. All of a sudden you come to this after traveling on the water for so long and looking at these beautiful mountains and come across all this different wildlife. You come to this place called Haines, Alaska. It's like a small port, and it's an old settlement that dates back to the Klondike Rush, and it was pretty lawless at the time when it was established. And then it got to the point where they had to put a military outpost there to keep the peace. So people were starving, people were being murdered. There's all kinds of things going on there. And then you put this settlement there with the soldiers back in the late 1800s to kind of keep things under control, keep law. And then they built this hotel there called the Halsingland Hotel, and it started out. There was a part of the Halsingland Hotel on the same property there. There's a old military barracks where the soldiers used to stay. There was a murder-suicide in the one building. That's one of the things we investigated. But at the actual hotel, what we were getting was we got called in by a young lady named Skylar. Skylar actually worked there, and she had a lot of experiences along with a lot of other people who worked there. And she wanted to know what was going on because she was trying to eventually, in the next several years, buy the property and take it over. And she's a very young, ambitious young lady who just wants to know. So we went in there not knowing what we were going to run into. We heard the stories of them seeing these apparitions, hearing things, all kinds of stuff going on. So we actually investigated the Halsingland, and we were on the top floor of the Halsingland Hotel, Mustafa and I, and we were investigating the back two rooms. I can't remember the room numbers off the top of my head, but we were investigating these. Well, there's actually 3 rooms back there, 3 or 4 rooms, and I'm standing in the one room, and Mustafa's kind of standing at the door. My camera op is standing behind me, the cameraman. And he's kind of filming over my shoulder, and Mustafa's, and we're both hearing something in the hallway. Sounds like some kind of movement. So he's kind of standing in the doorway. So I walk out into the hallway. I'm like, hey, if you want to come down and talk to us, talk to us. And literally maybe 15, 20 seconds into it, it's pitch black. Thank God I had my body cam on. And that's what captured, what I'm about ready to tell you about, the IR on it. Actually, I heard something charging down the hallway at me, like boom, 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 boom. Now you got to remember, we're in Alaska. It's pitch black. I don't know if it's an animal. I don't know what it is at this point. So if I jump back in the doorway, I'm like, whatever this is, it's coming through. It's not going to get me. So I jump back into the door, and I'm like, all right, you got me. And the crazy thing was, I wasn't the only one who heard it. All three of us heard it in the room, and my audio person, who was 2 stories below us, and the producer also heard it running down the hallway. And they're like, they radio up to us, what was that sound? And we're like, I don't know. Well, I totally forgot I had the body cam on. I'm like, and kind of made me stop her talking, like, oh man, I had the body cam on. Hopefully we captured that. So once we got out of there, we go back to home base. We kind of download the footage, and lo and behold, I captured this entity twice on camera coming out of this doorway. Once it was literally standing about 2 feet in front of me, and the second time was probably about 5 or 6 feet away from me, where it fully came out and was standing there, and then darted back in. And at the same time, we called an EVP, as you could hear it running, saying, "That's me, that's me." So that's pretty compelling. And then to have that happen, it was just amazing. And to capture it, not just to hear it, not to be, at first I thought, oh, maybe the place is getting to me. Maybe it's, maybe I'm just, I'm making this up in my head. Well, no, it really happened, because I actually was able to capture it on my body cam, which is really nice. And you caught the audio as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I do remember that episode and the scene you're talking about. And one of the reasons why I bring up the location, because I thought it was a great episode. Talk about, because that sort of experience, I mean, how often do you, of all the investigating, the years you've been doing, how often do you have that profound of an experience?
Ooh, that comes, they're very few far in between, man. I'll be honest with you. Probably, if you do this long enough, you probably get, 10 or 11, maybe 12 of those kinds of experiences. And the time I've been doing this, 18 years, I've had experiences like that. But I think that was the one that stood out to me the most, because I was able to capture it on video and put it out there for the world to see, which is really nice. A lot of the other experiences I've had that were similar to that were not on Ghost Hunters. They were at other locations before I filmed for Ghost Hunters, or after. And they're all special to me, but that one's probably one of the most special, because I just to put it out there for the world to be able to see it, and to kind of get their see what they think about it. And the people, that's the one people always talk about with me, man. Haines, Alaska, Clifton, Arizona, what are some of the other ones? Fort Stanton, New Mexico. They're some of the ones that really stand out. Galena, Illinois, that really stood out on the show for such amazing evidence we captured in these locations. Not just myself, but the other team members as well.
Yeah, Daryl, I was really excited when I found out you guys were going to film at Wendover, Utah.
Yeah, Wendover was amazing, dude.
Yeah, the Wendover Air Base. Now that's little over 2-hour drive for me.
Okay.
I got to do an event there. I led tours through several of the areas at Wendover Airfield. The hangar, the big hangar, Enola Gay Hangar, the old hospital, some of the old barracks, and the firehouse. We got to go in the firehouse, and interesting place. There does kind of feel like there's an energy to it. I can't say that I could say definitively whether I had paranormal experiences there. There were a few weird things that happened. What was your sense of the place, filming there, investigating there? What did you guys kind of come away with?
The most what I remember, because I went to Wendover twice. People don't realize that we filmed there, came back, and then me, Brandon, and Brian went back to Wendover to film again for 2 or 3 days. So just the experience of being in Wendover and the history of that location, a lot of people don't even know what Wendover is. And apparently you must be from the Salt Lake City area because you're 2.5 hours away from there, because that's where we flew into. And I've been
Yeah, fairly close. I'm in the Ogden area, which is about 30 miles north of Salt Lake.
Okay, yeah, because it's about 2 hours from Salt Lake, and I've been to Salt Lake many times, and I just love that. I don't know, I just love the scenery of it all, and this driving, out through the Salt Lakes for 2 hours. That's all you see for 2 hours until you get to this little bunch of mountains, and then you come into Wendover, and there's the airfield and the history there, and you didn't realize that was there. And if it wasn't for that airfield and all those airmen that sacrificed their time, their lives out there, because there was a lot of crashes, a lot of people died out there, in experimental aircraft, and all that. That could have totally changed the landscape of World War II if those guys didn't do what they did out of Wendover. And it was just amazing being there where Little Boy and Big Boy were designed, and the Enola Gay came out, the hangar where it actually sat, and just seeing all the different people, getting all the information of the different pilots and airmen who passed away out there, running these missions. And it was very strange experiences because it wasn't just paranormal as far as ghosts, but they were seeing unidentified flying objects out there. All kinds of things were going on out there. These light anomalies that would come across the desert, come to the airfield, and then take off again. We tried to capture that. I actually climbed up to the one watchtower, and I set some cameras up there to kind of hit the airfield at night. I didn't capture anything, unfortunately, but we had some really interesting experiences in the hangar. That's where we were getting these audible voices, walking, bagging. I actually set up a static cam in this one room where this eyewitness said that he came around the corner. He was in there. He worked there, and he ran into an officer. There's a guy in a full uniform, World War II style, standing in this room. So I set up a camera in this, and it's on the episode. And it ran for about 3 hours. Now, during this 3 hours it ran, we were investigating all the way on the other side of the base. We were investigating the airmen's quarters, which are the little buildings out there, and the other parts of the team were over in the officers' quarters, the main officers' building. So there was nobody in the hangar for like almost 3 hours. And during that time I had that camera set up, you could hear audible footsteps walk up to the camera, walk down the stairs that's behind it. There's a set of stairs that go up on both sides, up to the second level. You can hear somebody walk down, walk up to the camera, and almost stand there. You can almost hear them breathing, and turn around and walk away. And there was nobody in that building. So we captured that. We set up, Mustafa and I set up a audio recorder out in the barracks, and we left, walked around, did some investigating, came back, and at one point we captured a man whistling like he was on fire watch, walking through the barracks and coming in the barracks and leaving the barracks like he was on fire watch, maybe just kind of just doing his thing. We captured that. So we caught some really cool stuff out there. And that's the paranormal part. It wasn't what I was taken back by. I was taken back by the history of this location and how important it was to World War II. And up to today, I mean, they still have special forces out there training, coming in and doing special forces, doing ops out there. So up to this very day, it's still being used as some kind of aspect of training. Which is really
it's just steeped in history, from all the B-29 crews that trained there. Some had trained for missions in Europe. Some had trained for the Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Yeah, it's just steeped in history. It is, and you just feel the weight of that when you visit it for sure. I want to talk about the Officers Club, because that seemed to be one of the most interesting locations for the people that I worked with on the tour. and he had done some investigating. I personally didn't really get a chance to investigate the Officers Club. They caught a shadow figure on the upper level of the Officers Club. Anything like that you guys captured while you were there?
Well, I mentioned that I actually saw, and we weren't able to capture it on camera. We were actually, Mustafa and I were investigating. We just gotten in there. We're setting up equipment. We're kind of in the middle ballroom part of it, and you have the upper deck that walks around, and there's a giant American flag that hangs down the middle. I look up, my camera guy, the camera guy was standing over Mustafa watching him, filming him put the equipment down. I look up and I see an officer walk from right behind the flag, and you could see his silhouette, and he just disappeared. I remember like I remember yelling at Mustafa, dude, look up. And by the time he looked up in the right spot, he was looking to front of him, which is to the left. And I'm looking at the giant American flag. And I actually run out the door because I'm thinking the first thing I'm thinking of, it's a reflection. There's two giant French doors there. I'm thinking someone walked through the lobby area and it was their reflection casting up there. That's the first thing I think. So I run through there. I open the doors up. I run into the bathrooms. I even ran into the ladies' room, like, because there's nobody else in the building. I'm like, all right. So there's nobody in here. I look outside. There's nobody around the barracks. My audio person's sitting in like the cafeteria area, and then she kind of peeks around the corner, like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "No one walked in here." She said, "No, I've been sitting here." Because when these audio people come in, they go quiet. They're like ninjas. Like, there's been many times where I've got jump scared walking into a closet or into a bathroom and an audio person popping out of the tub because they're so damn quiet. I happen at least once every episode filming. But so I'm hoping to God we capture that. So we did have a static cam set up, but the static cam was not pointing in the right direction, unfortunately. But I personally had a personal experience where I saw what looked like an officer walk from the very edge of the corner to the back wall where that flag is, through the flag, and disappear behind the flag. And I could actually see their silhouette behind the flag. I can't explain it. And that was one of the eyewitness reports we'd gotten from people there. They're seeing this officer walking around the top deck. I can't explain it to this day. Unfortunately, we didn't capture it now.
Wow. Yeah, that kind of stuff blows your mind. Apparitions. I've truly, aside from a weird experience I had at work several years ago, never had that experience. I've seen shadows, disembodied voices, all kinds of different other types of experiences, even being touched, but never a full-blown apparition. So, I mean, that one seems so rare. The group I've worked with, other people have saw them. It just seems to be such a rare one, and I'm really hoping that's kind of the holy grail, I think, for me, for investigating.
It never happens, unfortunately, when you're looking for it. It's just when you're not looking for it, and all of a sudden you just capture. You're like, oh my God, it's right in the moment. I've had it happen several times, but it's always, it's never when you're like all set up and waiting. You're just like waiting for this damn thing. It's just always like in the spare of the moment. You're not expecting it, and boom, there it is, man. That's what happened to me there, unfortunately. And it was amazing. Well, I mean, I take it as a win because I experienced it. I got to see it. But unfortunately we couldn't capture it.
Yeah, I wanted to, any part of paranormal investigating also is knowing equipment and working with equipment and understanding what it can do for you and what it can't do for you. And, I think everybody kind of has their own, perhaps, favorite kind of equipment to work with. For you, what's kind of your go-to equipment? What do you like the most? What do you don't like?
What I like the most is like your just basic stuff, like the body cam has become a favorite of mine due to the fact that the audio quality and the video quality. I'm not sure what the pixelation is on some of these cameras, but they're amazing when it comes to IR, and it got to be for police officers and people who are using them in law enforcement. The audio is just as good. We've captured just as many EVPs on our video equipment than we have on just running a recorder, which is great. I've caught some of the EVPs on the show that were some of the most astounding just by running off my static cam, which is my handheld cam. So I love the cameras, especially the body cam, because it's like having another investigator with you. You just turn it on, clip it on. You totally forget it's there. You could take it off. You could set it on a shelf. You could do whatever you want with it. It's like having another investigator, it's so nice to have. And you capture so much great stuff on those body cams. I love the EDI+, which we introduced in our first season. It's all in one tool, basically. It's got pressure, temperature, temperature increase, decrease, pressure, humidity, geophone, which is basically vibration, and EMF on it. You can run them all at once, or you can run them individually. It has a slot for a memory card, so you can record it all, take it out, put it on your laptop or your PC, and kind of watch it, especially if you're capturing actual evidence why it's going off. And it's well shielded too. It's one of those pieces of equipment you can't set off with a walkie-talkie or a cell phone. That's another great thing about it. They're my two go-tos, and a good piece of audio equipment like a Zoom 6 is what I carry. I carry one with me on all my investigations. As far as stuff as I don't like, you got to kind of watch. I don't want to knock anybody, but there's stuff out there that are just thrown together for thrills. It just picks up radio waves or cell phone waves or whatever, and every time it goes off, someone thinks it's paranormal. That's the type of stuff I really don't like. If that's your goal, just to go get scared, hey, I'm all for it. Have fun with it.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah. If you're trying to do this false positive where, oh yeah, it could have been a ghost, or maybe it was just my cell phone going off, or the guy upstairs, all right. But if you want like actual good equipment that you can take after the investigation, you can download it, and especially if you have a client you're trying to show them evidence, you want equipment that's soundproof and it's not going to give you this false positives. That's the type of stuff that I like using, because I know if I capture something like that, 9 times out of 10, I probably capture something. It's not that 50-50 chance with some subpar equipment.
Yeah. I certainly think audio is probably good audio recorder is probably the best thing for me personally. Some of the other equipment you mentioned sounds like great equipment. Some of that may be a little cost prohibitive for some people. That's kind of the challenge with paranormal investigating, is it can get real costly for people when you start getting into too much equipment. You can have equipment overload, I think, too, sometimes. But it's fun to try new things, to experiment with new things. Motion lights is the known that I've used at locations. Kind of some of the more cheaper alternatives that you can use. But yeah, the few that you mentioned would be cool to try out. I've used an SLS before. I'm not sure about how valuable they are, whether they're providing false positives or what. Have you worked with the SLS Connect?
I have. I've worked with it several times. I actually own one that I bought probably 7 years ago, and I used it once, and it's been in a box under my desk, a hard case since then. And it's just the science behind it. It's too iffy. I mean, it's made to pick up. It's made to basically map out these stick figures, and you can do it by just, if you set it in a room, if there's a chair in a room or any kind of horizontal or vertical like surface that it can pick up on, it's going to map that stick figure. And that's my problem with it. I mean, if it really did like 100% work, I would be all for it. But there's no science behind it, really. I mean, it's from an Xbox. It connects. That's what it is. It's what it does. It's made to map out human figures, these stick figures. So it's kind of like one of those things. Okay, you got to kind of put it off. And there's people who swear by them, they love them, and God bless them. Hey, if that's your thing, man, I'm all for it. Have fun with it. But if I was going to do a serious investigation where someone called me into their house because they're having problems, I definitely wouldn't bring anything like that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I think that's an important aspect of it too. A lot of people work with equipment they don't understand. Heck, I don't understand a lot of the equipment, the technical aspects of it. And so that's why I say a lot of times an audio recorder and, a good camera, night vision cameras, a couple of good things I like to have. Meter, I do carry that. That's probably a cheaper alternative to the device you mentioned. I wanted to cover, I know we're getting short on time here, Daryl. I wanted to ask you, one of the challenging and kind of the perplexing things for me about investigating is I and many of the investigators, we ask for names so often and we seem to pretty much never get them. I've never gotten a name. I've had my name called, but I never get names. What's been your experience with that? Have you been able to capture EVPs and correlate it to, them telling you their name or when you've asked it? That's been the kind of the frustrating, challenging thing about it.
Yeah, not really. I mean, we've been on a couple cases where we thought we captured what sounded like the name. And once again, even if you do get the name, you don't know if that's who you're actually talking to. There's no way of proving you're talking to Karen if that's the name you're looking for, or Tim or Tom or whoever. And that's one of the problems with that. I've learned over many years of doing this that the best EVPs I ever capture are when I'm not asking any questions at all. I just have a piece of equipment. It would be an audio recorder, like a Zoom or a camera set up in a room, and I'm just having a regular conversation with someone else who's there. And a lot of times, if there's something there, he'll chime in. And there's a game I play, and I don't really. I'll let the other investigators know sometimes, especially if we're not getting anything. I'll put out like false information about the location. Like I'll have a conversation saying, "All right, I'm just going to say 50 people died here. I know 50 people didn't die here, and so, and I'll make up a story." And sometimes you'll get something, correcting you. You'll get a piece of audio saying, "Well, no, that didn't happen here," or "No, it was 3 people died here." I've had that happen, and that's one of the things I like to do, where you kind of just put up that, that misinformation just to see if you can get it, corrected.
That's an interesting approach. I haven't really tried that, at least not intentionally. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I do agree with you. There are times where you just seem to kind of be doing your own thing, and you're not asking questions, or you're just kind of hanging out. Maybe you're bored while you're doing an investigation, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue comes a CVP that kind of just kind of blows you away. It does happen that way. Kind of the random nature of this is the other thing that kind of sometimes, perplexes me, I guess. It never seems to come. I mean, every once in a while it comes on command, but not very often. It seems like they kind of are, whoever they are, it seems like they're kind of doing things on their own terms oftentimes, and when they decide to. I promised to, if anybody had any questions to ask you, that I did. I only got a couple. And this one, Kurt asks if you've worked with the crew of Blind Frog Ranch. I guess this is on one of the shows on TV. And if there's other similarities to the other ranch. I don't know if he's talking about Skinwalker Ranch here. Are you familiar with that show and that?
Ranch. I'm actually friends with one of the executive producers from Skinwalker Ranch, and we actually got to hang out with some of those guys in Dallas right before the show came out. In the Frog Ranch, I just kind of learned about that recently, and I did see there was a show about it that just came out, the first season, and I really haven't watched any of it, but I know it's not far from Skinwalker. They're within like 20 miles, 18 miles, I believe, from each other, so they're very, very close. So I started kind of researching into the Frog Ranch thing, because I hadn't heard of it until this point, and it seems like some of the things that are happening there kind of correlate with the same things that are happening over Skinwalker. So it's interesting because they're so close together. So it'd be, I have to look more into it. Like I said, I know some of the guys from Skinwalker, great people. The executive producer is an amazing guy, and everything they get out there is legit. And it's one of those places I've always, even before Skinwalker Ranch ever came out, I've always wanted to investigate there. Matter of fact, we were supposed to go film there, and we couldn't because I think they were getting ready to start filming Skinwalker there.
Yeah, and again, it's another place that's only a few hours from me, but it's not really a place you can visit. It's highly, a lot of security. Yeah, very tightly locked down. But it's quite interesting, those places. And then another one kind of in your neck of the woods that you may have heard of is Chestnut Ridge, which kind of seems to be a place similar to Skinwalker Ranch where just about everything strange has happened. Have you ever visited there or looked into that?
Never. No.
Yeah, so Chestnut Ridge, a lot of UFO sightings, cryptid creatures, Bigfoot-like creatures witnessed there. And in fact, Stan Gordon, who was on the show also a couple of years ago, has been researching the areas for years. So yeah, just kind of interesting, kind of similar to Skinwalker Ranch. It's, some people want to say paranormal vortex or some sort of thin veil there where there just seems to be weird stuff coming through. So, those places are kind of interesting. And I got one more here. Victoria, apparently she met you in Mustafa in North Texas and had an opportunity to investigate with you a little bit. She wants to know if you went back to Whataburger.
We have not been back yet. We will be in North Texas. We'll be, Whataburger, yeah. Well, we've been in Whataburger quite a few times. We were out there. We have not been back to that location she's talking about. But Whataburger it's definitely a place to stop when you're out in that neck of the woods. But we'll be out there in Dallas, not far from Dallas here in the next couple of months. We got a couple of investigations events out there, so definitely be hitting Whataburger though.
Yeah, now, Daryl, real quick, I know we're wrapping up. Like I said, any of the other former team members from the Ghost Hunter show that you're still working with? I know you mentioned Mustafa, Brandon, Brian, Rochelle, any of the others, Grant, any interactions with them still?
Yeah, Kristen. I just did an event with Kristen in December. Love Kristen to death. She's like a sister to me. I stay in touch with all of them. I was just talking to Brian earlier. So yeah, I stay in touch with all of them. I talk to Grant every once in a while. Talk to Grant around Christmas time. So yeah, I stay in touch with everybody. I think Mustafa, Brandon, we talk. Especially me and Mustafa, we talk a lot because we do a lot of events together. So I see him at least once a month. With these events we do. So
yeah, that's great. Well, hey, I know, like I said, we're short on time here, Daryl. I know you're pretty active on social media and such. If people want to reach out to you after they hear this show, ask a question, say hello, whatever the case may be, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Up on Instagram. I do more Instagram than I do anything. That's kind of my go-to. If you're looking for any of my events, if I'm going to be in your state or your local town or whatever, just go to theflumeryevents.com. That's our event company that does all our stuff for us. And you can just either that or you can go to my link tree on my Instagram. That's where all my social media is. I'll take you to everything I do: Facebook, TikTok, everything. My company, Paranormal Warehouse, as well.
All right, look out for that too. Any chance you'll be coming around this neck of the woods, Utah, again?
I was supposed to be there back in December, and I was supposed to go out to Vegas, and Utah, Salt Lake was my layover. But hopefully soon. I like it out. I like Salt Lake, man. I love that area. I just love Nevada, Utah. I love it out there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, hey, Daryl, I really appreciate you talking to me tonight. It's been a great discussion. Really great to hear about your experiences, your take on things, equipment, locations, all that kind of stuff. Real interesting discussion once again. So thank you so much for joining me, and have Have a great, you're on the East Coast. I know it's late for you, but have a great what's left of the rest of your night, man. And once again, thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank
All
you for
right.
having me.
All right.